corn, soybean, wheat conditions are all deteriorating, and JP Morgan is warning of a potential global food crisis.
If the disruption persists long enough, the adjustment shifts from prices, which we are putting up with now, to possibly rationing.
2 or 3 months, India is going to run out of fertilizer, and so there'll be a famine in India.
Recent study from Oxford Economics just came out projecting that global food prices are going to be rising by 12% by the end of 2026 and another 5% on top of that for 2027.
That sure seems to be a lot higher than the 3 or 4% they were telling us was inflation. And we're going to run through the El Niño forecast, how it's supposed to affect crops around the world, and why now there's this gigantic call for possible rationing of food, expect higher food prices, expect food shortages in some areas. And it's just going to be, well, a tremendous pull on our entire agricultural system, not only from the El Nino that's on setting, but previously with the geopolitics, the cutoff of fertilizers, the fuel prices, and all these things have wrapped into one package. So this video is about the El Nino forecast for you, what we can expect, which countries are going to be hit the hardest, and what you can expect for your food prices moving through the next 6 months to 1 year.
So El Nino has officially been confirmed. Right now, sea surface temperatures in parts of the eastern Pacific are already more than 1 degree Fahrenheit above normal. And all that extra heat can shift something called the jet stream. When El Nino strengthens, it can push the jet stream farther south. In the U.S., that often means storms that would normally miss California can suddenly slam into the state one after another. The southern United States often becomes wetter and stormier, while much of the northern U.S. turns warmer and less snowy.
Remember, normally those trade winds hold all the warm water back in the western Pacific. At least that's how it normally works. But this year we've had several reversals of those winds called westerly wind bursts. Instead of shoving the warm water west, the winds briefly flip around and push from west to east.
And there's your El Nino phenomenon. Every 2 to 7 years, we get one of these reversals in the atmosphere. The wind starts pushing the opposite direction. And here we are this year. So let me roll you through some slides. I want to take you back to 7 strongest El Ninos on record. So the largest one on the left side is December of 2026. On the forecast, which I'm going to say are egregiously high compared to the newest ones, which I'll show you as well. 2015, 1997, 1982, 1972. Now the 1877 on the bottom right and the 1888, those are estimations because, well, the thermometer technologies weren't as precise as they are today. So, some of this literally can be taken with a grain of salt, but they're putting it at a higher level here. As of the 27th of August, this will be what your temperature anomalies look like. And if we move forward to the September 3rd, you can see that's expanding a little bit, going west toward Indonesia and out that direction. Now, if we look at the sea surface temperature anomalies, this is a global snapshot here. So if we start way over to Africa, way to the west on the chart where it says EQ, equator, right in the middle, it's cooler off of Africa. And then as we transition through the Pacific Ocean on the southern half, cooler, right where the El Nino band is, much warmer. Sea of Japan, when we get up north, incredibly warm. So you see there's a mix of ocean temperatures around that are all affecting and overlaying and dovetailing into each other. Now, the whole premise of this, all this affects crop production. So here's your El Nino effects. BBC is putting out all these maps for you now so you can take a look. Which one's going to be more intense, how it affects, warmer, cooler, drier. And I think this one's kind of the best overall. That gives you a great glimpse of what you can look at. Amazon and Australia expected way drier. So if we take a look at this map, which I'll reference a couple times during the video here, 73 miles off the coast of Antarctica, and water so clean they're virtually untouched by human pollution, lives a tiny organism that researchers believe may be one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory nutrients ever discovered. It's called krill. If you've been taking fish oil for heart, joint, or memory support, there's something you need to know. Research shows fish oil is 50% less absorbable than krill oil. because fish oils omega-3s are in triglyceride form, while krill oils are in phospholipid form, which is the same format your cell walls are made of. That means krill oil gets into your cells immediately. In head-to-head studies, krill oil outperformed fish oil at improving cholesterol, reducing inflammation, and easing joint pain. Native Path Antarctic krill oil sourced from pristine Antarctic waters contains the powerful antioxidant astaxanthin and comes in a tiny soft gel, no fishy burps. For a special bundle offer plus free shipping, head to getkrill.com/adapt. That's GETKRILL.com/ADAPT. Try it risk-free with a 365-day money-back guarantee. Click on that link in the description box below. And it all depends on the amplitude of the effect. So going back a couple months ago, the August forecasts were incredibly just almost at ridiculous points of being heating. See where the black arrow is? 3.5, 4, 4.5 degrees. That's not realistic, but they're on the models anyway. And as you move forward in time, you notice that they've come away from that incredibly unrealistic back into something sort of, yeah, this is doable, 2.5 degrees, possibly 3. And then the newest model from just 2 or 3 days prior, look where it sits, 2.5 degrees. So you can see how this has moved from the frightening into the realistic. So even if we get 2.5 degrees, that'll still be incredibly powerful El Niño affecting crops worldwide, in addition to the fertilizer shortages, diesel price increases, geopolitics, the non-ability to load grains in Russia and Ukraine. That is, they're a third of the world's exported grain coming out of Russia's offline as well as Ukraine. So we're starting to see it everywhere. It's not just the El Niño, it's us humans breaking and turning off everything that allows humanity to survive.
Corn, soybean, wheat conditions are all deteriorating, and JP Morgan is warning of a potential global food crisis. Could this be the beginning of that, Scott?
Well, they say it is. I mean, they'll make the argument that we're already starting that. We've had some trouble this year with our crops. Mother Nature has not been complying as well. It's not a disaster by any means, but it's just not what we thought we were going to be getting. But the real key here, for the first time in a long time, Ashley, is the fact that we've got a problem with logistics. So weather has taken a back seat. Logistics around the world has slowed up. I mean, we've heard about the Straits of Hormuz, but we've got another issue in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov with the Kerch Straits. We've got problems there with wheat, and both of them have problems with fertilizer. And when we don't put down as much fertilizer, guess what happens to yields? Sorry, this is a cascading event. So this is a logistics issue, it's a weather issue, geopolitical issue, and they're all kind of stacking up, unfortunately, for the perfect storm, where JP Morgan sees food inflation at 5% next year. So that's not good.
Yeah, this dovetails right in. The new report from JP Morgan warns global food costs could climb 5% in the first half of 2027. That's up from the current U.S. proposed food inflation rate of 3%. Now, I do agree that Black Sea and Sea of Azov, that's what's happening. Ukraine and Russia were sending drones into each other's loading terminals. Not only did they destroy the fuel storage depots on both, in many a port, but the loading and the conveyor belts, the storage facilities, it's gone. There's no way to repair that in time to get this year's harvest out. So at least 1/3 of Russia's grains will not be sent out this year. They could go by rail, but if it goes by rail, it's going to go somewhere much more local than it could go by ship. And you see, this is all the perfect storm of humanity creating the perfect storm. And if we look at financial times here, U.S. farmers are worried about everything going on. U.S. farmers in the Corn Belt, not only are they facing drought in the Wheat Belt, but they're facing the worst crisis in 40 years.
A recent study from Oxford Economics just came out projecting that global food prices are going to be rising by 12% by the end of 2026 and another 5% on top of that for 2027.
If the disruption persists long enough, the adjustment shifts from prices, which we are putting up with now, to possibly rationing.
2 or 3 months, India is going to run out of fertilizer. And so there'll be a famine in India. Food production on the planet could fall 10, 25%. And therefore, there simply won't be enough food for everyone on the planet. And then it's a question of who's going to starve.
And they're saying there's going to be a major food crisis in 6 months. And that people are not going to be able to get food. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is not a temporary disruption, says Politico, but the start of a systemic shock to global food prices.
Oh, the messaging's out. Now you see it. It's all the publications. You knew when they pressed this button, it was going to be for a purpose to get people nervous. Now, here we go. Now companies can just raise prices. Well, there's a shortage here, there's a shortage there, shortage everywhere. So this goes great into the bottom line of companies reaching record profits involved in anything touching their fingers into the food chain here. The broadcasting needs to come first, because you just can't raise prices out of the blue. People will ask questions. But if you're going to raise the prices after all this messaging's been out, we got the Niño, Russia's not exporting, everything's shutting down. Droughts in the Midwest, global wheat production's down 29% apparently. Global rice production down 23 to 25%. So now we start to look at all these things and say, well, it just makes sense that they would raise prices. Now, I don't know about 11.5% on that through the end of the year here, but even 5% is way far expensive. You know, they've been trying to, tell us maybe a half truth of your food's rising at 2% or 3% per year. Anytime you go to the store, you know that's not true. Now we come into the harvest season, and if it's really lean, and then here's another thing not a lot of people are thinking about. At the harvest season, most farms, large farms, middle farms, mid-size, will start getting everything ready for the next planting season. So that means they would be getting fertilizers for the next planting season. Now, we're already really scrappy and lean on the fertilizer. So luckily, they had pretty much what they needed for this year, but everybody was really, it didn't apply the most they could, or their optimal application of fertilizer. Very few farms were able to do that. This next year, if you're looking at a 29% loss of global wheat this year, and if we can't get fertilizers in, I would not kid me if we went up around 50% next year. Then you're just praying that the carryover stocks are in play, that they had told you how much wheat was left on the planet. This is going to be a multi-year thing here, because doesn't seem like anything's sort of smoothing out now currently. And now we got the D-Day, economic D-Day, and they're talking about wrecking the entire global economy if they were to do such a thing, to make other nations comply to the D-Day. If that happens, well, what would happen? Everything would collapse. Okay. But they want to turn on a new system for tokenization anyway. So it kind of all just plays in. I think we're being played, but maybe you can leave a comment below on what you think. Now, here's your El Nino long range pattern. This is for North America generally. If you're looking far into Canada, polar jet, frozen, but dry. And the subtropical jet's going to bring a lot of moisture down southeast. So if we're looking at precipitation, again, the reason I'm bringing this to you, see where it says below average? If you draw a line straight down to Texas, that's our wheat belt. It's already dry as a bone anyway. That's why the harvests are so minimal. And they're talking about Dust Bowl again. Below average rainfall in the winter is not a good thing. We need that soil precipitation to get into the planting. But southeast, out west looks pretty good. Snowfall chances, because we get this jet moving through, definitely going to be higher for the southeast U.S. and along that border there. Texas could use the rain as well. But above average, where the purple is in the above average areas. But what does that mean for us? Here's your historic data for snowfall. Generally, El Nino year, southeast U.S. receives an enormous amount more snowfall than normal. So again, you're going to have to adjust these dates. Now, up north near the Canadian border, if it's really, really dry, you're not going to get snow because, well, you need moisture to produce snow. Where it might snow first in the southeast before they get snow in somewhere like Montana this year. As crazy as that sounds, it's possible. And the temperature is also above average. But again, you know, if it's minus 20 versus minus 22 below zero, that's really, you know, is it above average? Yeah, okay, it is. But the below average temperatures, southeast U.S., eastern seaboard,
That report saying between the late 2025 and early 2026, there was a sharp rise in households reporting that they had to skip meals, use food banks, and rely on SNAP benefits, or even dip into their savings account if they had any, just to try and cover grocery costs that are nearly 3% higher than a year ago. And 10% of households surveyed said that they didn't have enough food to feed their kids, and their kids had to miss meals. That's more than double the numbers from mid-2020.
There's absolutely no doubt that we have seen an amplification that in the last 22 years I have never seen. A third of those new people are people who have never needed food relief before.
And then we find the phenomenon of buy now, pay later for food. 2025 to 2026, that's up 6%. So you can see how this is going to start stretching the entire planet and all genres of earners. It's going to hit the lowest earners first. And this is going to cause social chaos. Irregardless if the El Nino is lesser or more than it's anticipated to be, if we don't get this Middle East thing figured out, it's just going to be literally the straw that will break the camel's back. All these people run into food banks, but the food banks are saying they're getting less donations from people because, well, people are keeping food longer and they're eating things that they would have donated earlier or previously. Paying for food, using credit cards for food, taking out loans to pay for food, and buy now, pay later for food, that's not really, once we're at that option, we have our backs against the wall. Food prices are absolutely going to rise. I was looking at the wheat charts. I mean, we're up at like 7-year highs on wheat. It's going to continue to go higher from here. It could go into record pricing by the end of the year. They're talking, that news report is saying 3% food. It's impossible that you're getting 3% food inflation. There's nowhere, at least that I've seen, that there's 3%. It's far, far, far higher than that. And then JP Morgan talking 5%, and others talking 11%. I mean, the messaging is out there. So how are those that are already struggling to pay for food? How are they going to be able to afford these costs increase another 10% increase, and then the availability or not? And then Lagarde is talking about rationing. We got more troubles with not enough moisture in winter for our next planting season. I mean, this is going to be a multi-year event. This is just the very first, very light taste of what's to come. So if it does string out into 2028, oh my.
But the impacts don't stop there. Australia and Southeast Asia often see more droughts, heat waves, and wildfires. Peru and Ecuador can face heavy rainfall and flooding, while parts of Brazil and southern Africa often become much drier than normal.
Which is going to be a problem because Australia already experienced massive wheat deficits. South Africa is a major producer for the rest of Africa. These two, again, are just the linchpins that are pulling out the entire undercarriage of the system. So I'll bring you back over here to the same chart again. Amazon conditions and Australia become much drier during El Niños. Now we have an amplified El Nino. And we're going to see this also in other areas, especially Southern Africa. But these producers in these nations also on supply to others. So you could just see the prices moving up everywhere. Let's move over to Indonesia for a second. Drought-induced El Nino. All these areas are showing drought conditions. Now, these should be normally lush green rice fields in these terraces here. I see brown. And here's another one off BBC. One of their reservoirs has been drying out so much that one of the towns that was flooded when they put the reservoir in, becoming visible again. And then we have the entire river disappearing where the undercarriage or the stanchions of the river here are being shown, where the old bridge was, where the new bridge are, where the pilings, it's really low water, like incredibly low. And if we look over at India, they missed their monsoon tremendously this year, very low. I think it was something like 40% below the normal average rainfall patterns. And then if we look, we're coming into another planting season of Kharif, but you can see on the right side where the map is, the yellow is below normal range yet again. So India's been hit a couple of times, and a monsoon, they're already expected to have lower than normal rice production, and wheat production's been wiped out. And if we jump up to Japan as well, Korea, Japan, rice producers, and west over there into China, they've just been pummeled with rain this year. Their harvests are going to be very very low comparatively to the, I would say probably like the 5-year average or 10-year average. China is going to be scraping the bottom of that average. 90-day precipitation for Africa. Luckily right now, that green in South Africa, in the southern part of Africa, will maybe be enough moisture in the soil to get some yields out. But as this dries out through El Nino for a full year now, it just depends on what that soil moisture is going to be at planting and how much fertilizer they can get. But you can see how this is becoming a thing. Now, if you look up at the top, right where Africa is starting to curve, right there, West Africa, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, etc. That's the whole cocoa production area. They're expecting massive booming like cocoa crop because of all the moisture this year. Like they've mapped this out many a time before.
Listen up, Australia. Looks like El Nino is here. The start of September is looking to be a pretty dry one, with minimal rainfall falling across the country, unless you live in the Central East Coast or Tasmania.
Yeah, and there you go. Dry in Australia as well. Already forecast out. So you can see we got this full court press on us. And clearly, I hope this laid out some of the things we're looking at in terms of the drivers of the food costs moving forward. It's going to be geopolitical, it's going to be economic, and it's going to be natural. All those three things are what they consider like the perfect storm. You can't get more of a perfect storm than this. And then if we go ahead and in the United States and they proceed with the D-Day, the economic D-Day, that will absolutely collapse the global economy. And at that point, they're just the availability of food, or you could just see a global famine. If the D-Day occurs, even Scott Bessent said that if we do that, we're absolutely going to collapse the entire global economy. When you have that thing, the trade just doesn't work, so the food won't move. So you'd be looking at a global famine scenario. Not every country, of course, but countries that trade and can't produce their own, that import every year. So these are the types of things we're looking at, and I would encourage you to share this with your friends and family. And if you're thinking about getting ready for this, how about some storable foods, the 1-week food supply and a 72-hour food supply, both My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030. That link's in the description box below. Also, if you want to grow your own, you can still get the autumn garden in here. TrueLeafMarket.com, heirloom organic seeds for any grow zone on the planet. That link's in the description box. Supporting those sponsors also supports the channel so I can bring in more information like this. Please remember to subscribe if you like the content, share with your friends and family. You got to hit that notification bell. A lot of people are saying they're being unsubscribed, but it is crunch time. Literally, if it moves the way it is, we're going to get a light version of something you didn't think was possible. If things go more squirrely or awry, it'll be a life-defining moment for most people on the planet in terms of availability of food. Things that you thought weren't possible will be possible. So anyway, until next time, I appreciate your valuable time. Bye for now.